Welcome back for another video. We're going to run through all the biggest FPL questions and dilemmas this week. Thanks for sending in as always. And at the end, I'll also run through my final team thoughts and a couple of possible tweaks to the wildcard team. And we'll also cover all the key news from the press conferences today. Let's get into it. First question from Brandon, who asks, which Spurs asset should we be looking at? Right now there's only two that I'm interested in, Solanke and Maddison. Spurs have got good long-term fixtures, so I see them both as sound purchases. In Maddison's case, he's second only to Haaland for expected goal involvement this season. So when any player's putting up numbers that good, we've got to pay attention, especially when combined with good upcoming fixtures. In Solanke's case, he was on the score sheet last game week, and he started Thursday night in Europa League, getting 1 goal, 1 assist, despite Spurs being a man down after 8 minutes. Where I'm having some reluctance now is owning both of these together on the wildcard. Luis Diaz was completely rested midweek in the League Cup, so I'm tempted to go for him instead over Maddison and look to make that switch in a couple of game weeks time, perhaps game week 8 when they're home to West Ham. As a word of warning, if you've got Son, he came off of a possible injury Thursday night. Though Postecoglou couldn't give an update after the game, he said, I haven't spoke to him. He said he felt a bit tired, but I haven't spoke to him or the medical team yet. Emil asks who to start between Rodgers and Smith Rowe this game week. I'd give it to Rodgers this week. Ipswich are the worst team in the league for expected goals conceded so far. Though obviously I do recognise that the difficult fixtures can add some noise to the data. But Forest are also third best for XGC, so there's an obvious difference here in the quality of the two defences, so I'd start Rodgers. Neil says, fewer double game weeks and blank game weeks has taken some of the planning fun out of FPL, and he asks why we're getting fewer this season. So historically, we've had more double and blank game weeks than we're going to have this season. If you're new to FPL, a blank game week is when a team doesn't have a fixture that week, and a double is when they've got two. So in a nutshell, a postponed fixture or a blank game week gets moved elsewhere in the calendar, causing a double game week, which offers huge upside when you've got players playing twice with all the points doubled. So one cause for the blanks and doubles is the FA Cup. This season, the FA Cup 5th round is going to move back to weekends, so there's only minor fixture clashes expected, which will be the FA Cup semi-finals and the final, plus the League Cup final. So the League Cup final is game week 29, which would be a small blank for those finalists. The FA Cup semi-finals are game week 34, which means a possible double game week in game week 33 or 36. And the FA Cup final clashes with game week 37. But the only matches that are midweek between game week 37 and 38 is Europa League final. So there's a fair chance game week 37 isn't a blank, because the fixture could just move midweek. In other words, unless the FA Cup finalists are in the Europa League final, then the game week 37 postponement can move to midweek game week 37. Otherwise it'd be a small blank game week, which is possible in 37. It can be a bit much to wrap your head around, so in a nutshell, the possible blanks are going to be game week 29 and 34, the possible doubles are game week 33 and 36. It's all much later in the season anyway, so nothing to think about right now. We'll cover the blanks and doubles in depth nearer the time, so make sure you subscribe to get all the tips you need. Question from Cullen, who asks whether McNeil's a possible differential budget midfielder. I really like the McNeil pick. Now, admittedly, Everton don't score loads of goals, but he's very involved in what they do. In fact, 2.76 expected assists this season, ranks second best in the league after Maddison. He's got great long-term fixtures, and he's cheap enough for 5.5 mil, where you're not stressing too much if he's blanking. Semenyo I also really like. He's got Southampton and Leicester next, but I wouldn't feel that comfortable starting him in game week 8, 9 or 10 against Arsenal, Villa and Man City, so you need a rotation pair with him. McNeil actually rotates perfectly, so going with both could work very well. Going even cheaper, Rodgers is still a top pick. I like him as an 8th attacker especially. Ipswich, Man United, Fulham and Bournemouth is a decent block of 4 games ahead. And lastly, Dibbling needs a mention. There actually were a few questions about him as well. He's emerged as the best 4.5 midfielder in the game now. He got a goal last game week. He won a penalty the week before against Man United, which Archer unfortunately didn't bury, so no assist for that one. He plays right wing for the Saints as well, whereas Winks for the same price is a deep line midfielder. Game week 8 they're home to Leicester, game week 10 they're home to Everton. You could start him in those two. Question from FPL Pat. Is playing the wildcard without backup keeper with Raya and Fabianski viable? Yeah, Raya is causing a real headache for wildcarders and non-wildcarders alike, as it's a great entry point for the Arsenal defence. We don't have much to go on. He missed the League Cup with a reported thigh issue. He did miss the League Cup last season as well midweek. My gut feeling is that he will play. Arteta didn't rule him out of game week 6, which suggests it's not serious, so I'm personally willing to take the chance, even if it means going keeperless for 1 week, probably not going to be more than that. If you don't want to take the risk, then Flecken's the best backup. He's home to West Ham this game week, and he's got Ipswich home and Arsenal got Liverpool in game week 9. It's a lot to spend in goal though. Fabianski almost certainly doesn't play, but he seems like the only 4 mil that has a slight chance at the moment given West Ham's poor form. He's 39 though, and it would be a surprise if Areola got dropped for him. Hussam asks, Calvert-Lewin or Wood? Now I've been going back and forth on these two myself on the wildcard, Calvert-Lewin's got Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, Brentford. Wood's got Fulham, Chelsea, Palace, Leicester, West Ham, Newcastle and Arsenal, so the fixtures favour Calvert-Lewin slightly. What about the underlying numbers then? Well, Wood's got 2.46 expected goal involvement, Calvert-Lewin's got 1.9. However, Wood took a penalty last game which skews the expected goals data. They're both on penalties, and that's all that matters really. Wood's got 1.54 non-penalty XG, Calvert-Lewin's got 1.47. So they're dead even in terms of XG so far. I'm leaning towards Wood currently, purely because of his very good injury record as opposed to Calvert-Lewin. I think Ndiaye is going under the radar as well. He's playing as a 10 for Everton, so he should be a midfielder in FPL really. He's so good with his feet and he scored a quality goal last game and he's 5.4 mil, also scored in the League Cup. The thing with Calvert-Lewin is he's a really poor finisher. He's scored about 56 goals from something like 74 XG in his Premier League career, so a massive underperformance. But the better chances are falling to him and more frequently, whereas Ndiaye is not getting those chances as consistently. I don't mind the Ndiaye pick though for 5.4 mil. Sergeant Postman asks, is it worth wildcarding or take the -8? In this scenario, I'd lean towards wildcarding, not just to save yourself an 8-point loss, but putting that aside, it's a very solid wildcard window with the fixture swings this week. On top of that, in your case you've got 2 free transfers as well, which will carry over if you activate the wildcard now, and you could roll to have a couple more after that. I personally never wildcard with a booked in transfer by the way, though obviously you could make the case for it this season if you're wildcarding with 4 or 5 transfers. There's been a few questions about this actually, and for those of you that don't know, if you take hits and then you wildcard, the hits get wiped, and the free hit works the same. You also retain the transfers even if you spent them before activating the chip. There was a question about other wildcard windows as well. Obviously the wildcard chip's a hot topic this week, but it certainly doesn't apply to everyone if your team's set up well, so when are the other good wildcard windows? The international break wildcard is generally a sound strategy. There's a break before Gameweek 8 and there's a break before Gameweek 12, which is the final break this year. Gameweek 12 I really like. Using Scout's ticker, sorted by difficulty, Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton the top 3. So there's Palmer, Colwill, maybe Sanchez, Saka, Havertz, or double Arsenal defence for Bruyne or Dunk at Brighton, João Pedro as well. Newcastle right up there as well. Now a lot can change over the space of a few game weeks, and obviously we're going nowhere near Newcastle now, but Isak could absolutely be a factor again, as could Gordon. You could go Maddison and or Solanke on the wildcard as well, with a view to benching them against Man City. After that they've got immense fixtures. You can join Scout with the link below by the way, that link gets you 40% off. And you get access to the ticker tool, data tables, player comparison, award-winning articles and loads more. It's my 6th year as a Scout member and I can't recommend it enough. On to some other news from today's press conferences and then my wildcard team. Newcastle first. Howell said that Isak is still nursing a toe injury and he's a big doubt for the Man City game. He hasn't trained all week. It's a broken toe and it's stiffed up after the Fulham game last game week. If you've still got Isak at this point, it's the easiest sell ever. Not just the injury but the fixture. Watkins, Havertz and Solanke all great replacements around that price bracket. Good news Liverpool defence owners. Slot thinks that Alisson's going to be ready to return to the starting 11 from that muscle injury that forced him to miss Gameweek 5. He's set to train fully with the group today. Arteta didn't give us anything insightful on Raya in the press conference today. When asked about Raya, he said, "We have to wait another 24 hours. We have to wait 24 hours to see if he's looking good or not that good." There's a chance I suppose we get some training picks that might have him in. I'll be keeping an eye out, but this might be all we have to go on. I'll be taking a chance of him in my team. If you're on a wildcard and you don't want to take the chance, you could get Flecken as your backup, or you could go Flecken as your main keeper and go for an Arsenal defender or 2. Gabriel and Saliba in other words. O'Neill says there's a virus affecting his players. He says Bentley's fine now, but there's quite a bit of illness with players that's going to need a check. There's a virus going around, some players missed training today, so it's looking good if you've got Liverpool assets in your team. Pep's ruled De Bruyne out of Gameweek 6, still carrying an injury, and he might not return until after the international break, Gameweek 8. If you've got him, get rid of him. Bumo and Diaz are 2 solid replacements to consider for a bit cheaper, or Palmer and Saka if you can find the extra cash. Pep was also asked if Lewis and Kovacic are the solution to Rodri's absence, who's had surgery now and he's going to miss the entire season. Pep said, "It's one of them. I have a few more. Gundogan can play in that position. Stones and Akanji have played in that position. We have alternatives to do it." So it's as we suspected really. Pep's got other options to play that position, and Lewis isn't nailed or a guaranteed starter, but he could get some more minutes than he would have done. He's a risky but high upside pick. Don't get him unless you've got the bench cover. Finishing up with some final thoughts for the game week and my wildcard team. It's Raya in goal. I've got a back 3 of Trent, Lewis and Gabriel. In midfield, Semenyo, Saka, Bumo and Luis Diaz. And up front, Wood, Haaland and Solanke. Haaland captain, Saka vice. On the bench, Fabianski, Rogers, Colwill and Greaves. Now, I'm currently 0.1 mil off of Ford in this team, which is so annoying. I'd need Jackson to rise again tonight to bank the 0.1 mil profit. Or if Matthews drops to 3.9 mil, then he can go in for Fabianski. I've looked at Colwell as a hedge against Lewis, as there's a good chance we know if Lewis starts in Game Week 6 and 7 before the deadline, and Lewis has got Brighton and Forest home those weeks. However, beyond that, Colwell's fixtures don't look great for a few weeks, so I'm also considering Mykolenko, who's got nicer fixtures. The only risk here is if Lewis doesn't start in Game Week 7, I'll be playing Mykolenko against Newcastle. If the price changes don't happen, I'll just get Mykolenko. Now, one notable change here is Luis Diaz. He got the full rest midweek after the team selection video, and he's facing Wolves, which feels too tempting to pass up on, with a view to switching him to Maddison after a couple of game weeks' time. This also gets me off the Spurs double up for the 2 away games, and then I could buy Maddison for West Ham home onwards. So the plan would be to roll in Game Week 7, which brings me up to 3 free transfers, and then I could consider Maddison, or perhaps even Bruyne if there's somewhere to free up some money. The final decision to make is starting Wood or Rodgers. Rodgers has got the better fixture on paper, but Wood's playing home and he's on penalties, so it's really close. Let me know which one you'd start. Thanks very much for watching. Hit subscribe if this was helpful. We'll be live here for the deadline in the morning as well. See you then.